In the US alone, there are more than 150,000 unwanted horses. These horses often end up neglected until they die or are rescued, or are sent to auction, where they might have a shot at rescue before they're slaughtered. For those thousands of horses, there are only a few hundred equine rescues in the US, and the two biggest issues rescues face are lack of funding and adequate land, with not enough volunteers and publicity close behind. Right now, it's not realistic to save every horse, but by supporting rescues, we can work to expand the number of horses saved and keep rescues working. Horses are a lot harder to maintain than rescue cats and dogs because they require so much more space and food, along with vet costs and farrier fees. So, while not everyone can take in a rescue horse, it makes a huge difference if you can donate to or volunteer at a rescue. In this video, we're going to look more into rescues, helping them, adopting rescue horses, and some current preparation for equine owners to make sure that your horse doesn't end up in need of a rescue. So we visited and interviewed a local rescue, Safe. Some rescues work at auctions to buy horses before they're sent to slaughter, but many rescues work with the nearby animal control to take in horses seized from abuse or neglect. Safe happens to work with animal control. Occasionally, rescues will also take owner-released equines. So, some facts about U.S. rescues. The most common capacity of U.S. rescues is about 30 horses, and the care of a horse can range anywhere from $1,800 to $3,500 a year or more. The most common property size for a rescue is about 33 acres to provide enough paddock space and grazing area for the horses. About half of those horses that end up in the rescues are there because of owner-related factors. And we asked Safe to tell us a little bit about the steps they take when a horse arrives.
When we take in a horse for the first time, we transport them here, and typically we'll have our vet out right away to assess the horse's physical condition and take a look at any injuries, advise us on how to safely feed the horse if it's been starved, and kind of give us a game plan for the initial rehabilitation that we're going to do. When the horse first arrives, we put them into quarantine, and that is for the safety of our herd here as well as the safety of the incoming horse. We don't want any sicknesses or anything passed between horses. So we typically do a 3-week quarantine in which the horse is in a special quarantine stall and paddock where they're not going to be touching any other horses, and our volunteers will often put on like protective clothing like smocks and have different tools for cleaning the horse's stall, just because it's so easy to pass a bug between horses in a stable situation. So we do the quarantine in order to make sure that the horse is healthy, and then once they are healthy and stable, we'll schedule a dental examination. Usually they need their teeth done. We'll have the farrier come out and trim their hooves. Those are two things that often don't happen to horses that are being neglected, but they're very important parts of their upkeep. And then we start working with the horse in our horsemanship program, working with them on the ground, kind of see what they know, what they don't know, kind of get a assessment of their level of education, so that we can know if we're going to be training the horse to be ridden in the future, or if the horse is going to be a companion. Either way, we try to figure out what they know and then work them into the normal routine here at the stables.
How can we help horses before they get to rescues? Learning to recognize signs of neglect and knowing how to report it are both important. One of the most common signs are emaciated bodies, which are scored using the body condition score that goes from 1 to 9. Another two signs are overgrown hooves and long, patchy hair. Long and dull hair occurs in horses that are malnourished. They grow the longer hair to retain heat in place of fat, and they don't have the nutrients to maintain healthy, shiny hair. If you see a horse that appears to be abused or neglected, you should call animal control, because rescues don't have the authority to seize horses. Animal control requires reports from the first-hand witness, as well as the exact address of the horse, and they also generally prefer recent photos. If an equine is running loose, obviously abandoned, or severely injured, then you're better off calling 911 before animal control. Even if you have no experience with horses, there are ways to help out rescues. You can do repairs on the facilities, handle paperwork and calls, or help out with chores like mucking out and feeding. Every role is necessary to keep the rescue functioning. In SAFE's annual report for 2019, they recorded their top 5 expenses as vet fees, feed, facility lease and maintenance, training for the horses, and community outreach. We also asked the executive director to tell us a little bit about how many volunteers it takes to keep SAFE running.
We're looking at like 15 or 16 people. Then we also have volunteers that come in on certain days of the week to work on our facilities team. They do repairs and maintenance on the barn, the outbuildings, the property, the fences and paddocks. And we also have volunteers who keep the vehicles tuned up and so forth. So I'd say on an average day we probably have about 20 to 25 volunteers here.
Okay, my name is Sue Coulter, and I've been volunteering 2.5 years. So, everybody starts on either an AM or PM short shift, and basically, if you're on AM, you clean stalls and put food in the stalls, and if you're on PM, you clean paddocks, and then you feed horses. So. That's how I started, and I still do that once a week.
Okay.
But now I also come early and feed twice a week, feed horses, and I work with the horsemanship program and do some groundwork with horses and some other things as well. So, but I still do just the same short shift that I started with as well.
Wow. Okay.
It's fun.
Awesome. What do you love about volunteering?
Well, the biggest thing is just seeing the horses transform. They come in, and not always, but often they're in bad shape, and often they're frightened, and that's not great to see, but it's great to see them figure out that they've landed well, and just see them blossom and see them turn into good citizens that have a future and really become comfortable.
Yeah.
It's really great.
In June of 2019, SAFE was called in to help with a herd of horses abandoned on a property in Fall City, Washington. An individual had collected more than 100 horses from auctions, then neglected to care for them and refused to move for them. Law enforcement couldn't do anything because conditions weren't considered bad enough yet. Then they found part of the herd in Fall City, where the horses had been left to breed for 4 years, until 12 became 40. SAFE found homes for 15 of them until legal disputes stopped the rescue effort. And then 4 months later, they were found again, and the King County Sheriff's Office, along with Regional Animal Services and SAFE, took 24 out of 25 horses into custody. Now, SAFE has found homes for all but 9, who are still at SAFE until they find their forever homes. Rescue horses often can show in the ring and still do well, and adopting one for trail riding and light work is even more common. But some rescues won't be able to be ridden again, and they still need homes. Taking in a companion horse is a great option for many people.
So often our companion horses are adopted to people who maybe they had two horses and one of them passed away and now the other horse is lonely and upset. But the thing I like people to understand about companion horses is just because a horse can't be ridden, it doesn't mean that there aren't a ton of things you can do with that horse. There's all sorts of new sports now, new competitions having to do with like in-hand dressage or in-hand agility or in-hand trails, things like that. Okay. So that can be a lot of fun. Also, just caring for a horse, you know, the consistency of feeding every day and cleaning their stalls and keeping them comfortable and happy, that can be really satisfying and really enjoyable. So for our companion horses, you know, we're looking for the type of person who has the heart and the intention of giving them a very comfortable life where they're looked after and they're going to you know, be comfortable and feel secure and well cared for.
Some rescues also allow fostering, which is a great option for horse owners who might not be close enough to volunteer, but have the land and ability to care for another horse or two. We all think we're going to be there for our animals, but you can never be too careful. There are, though, some easy steps you can take to prevent your equines from ever needing the help of a rescue, like making an emergency plan and working with your horse to make them more marketable.
Okay, there are a few different steps that we would recommend horse owners take so that they're prepared for anything that might happen with their horse. Sadly, the number one thing is to have money in reserve or have a way of paying unexpected vet bills. Horses always seem to find a way at some point or another to hurt themselves, yeah. And you know, you want to be able to pay for whatever vet treatment is needed to get your horse back on its feet. I strongly recommend that horse owners look into establishing a pet trust, which it's a part of estate planning. In my case, for my personal horses, I have a life insurance policy that I pay into. It's like $100 a month, and the money that if I was to pass, that money would fund my pet trust. And my pet trust says that one of my horses stays where he is. He's at a retirement barn, but the trust would pay for all his expenses and make sure that he's cared for. My other horse, I have a friend who's designated that she would get him, and again, the trust would pay all his board and his training and his vet expenses and so forth. So neither of them just end up in limbo if something was to happen to me. Okay. Because you know, you think you're going to outlive your pets, but there's no guarantee of that. Yeah. And what's really sad is when we have, you know, a horse that's been left behind and there's no one to care for them and nobody knows anything about them, and you know, we just want to encourage people to bite the bullet and plan a little bit better. We highly recommend that all horse owners put the time and the money into education for their horses. The horses that end up in safe are typically horses that either have, you know, stood around for most of their lives with very little handling, or they're horses that have been you know, trained incorrectly and so forth, so they have problems. And the simple fact of the matter is, like, a horse that has good manners, is well behaved, is safe to be around and fun to ride, those horses don't end up in rescue, because that's what people want. They want a horse that they can enjoy and they can exist safely around. So the horses that we see tend to have gotten little to no training, little to no education. Maybe they don't even have boundaries. They don't even know how to walk safely on a lead. Horses that don't have an education are the ones that end up in trouble. So people who own horses, I strongly suggest that, you know, invest in training for your horse, invest in training for yourself, and then put the time in. So the biggest thing I could recommend to anybody who owns a horse is just make sure your horse is easy to handle and has the education that they need to be successful.
Regardless of whether or not you do all of these, preparing just a few can help to put your mind at rest that whatever happens, your horse will end up in a good home and be cared for. So go find a rescue. If it's a one-time donation, a recurring one, picking up a volunteer shift, or adopting, everything helps those horses. And if you already own a horse, take a minute and start one of the prevention steps if you don't have any done already. If you're still not sure about supporting rescues and the horses, here's some words from Bonnie.
So I would say if you're thinking about volunteering but you're worried, well, I don't have any experience with horses, I'd say come on down and give it a try anyway, because the best way to learn how to be around horses is to be around horses. And as long as you're sensible and you can listen and follow direction, you'll do well here.
So thanks a lot for hearing us out, and I hope that you'll check out a few of these websites to learn a little bit more about rescues and find a rescue near you. And if you'd take the survey in the description box, that would mean a lot. Just gives us some feedback on what you learned and if you plan to do anything with it.